All right. So here we are. We are basically in May. I think, Charlie and Ollie, we've been trying to do this for quite some time, and we never quite got around to it because
been a while.
Because you guys are too busy for me to be able to back it down in one place, living the high life in the south of France.
Hey.
But it's brilliant to have you on. This is the Done Deal podcast. We've come a long way since those initial Done Deal days, which is awesome. And what I want to do is have you guys on because actually the brilliant thing that happened, which was very much in the background of my book before it was launched, was to get you guys both involved in effectively activating the book from a marketing, digital, influencer, sharing perspective. And so what I thought I wanted to do was actually just try and talk through some of the cool things that we did, your brainstorming, your activation of all the great things that we undertook during that time, and that led to the relative success of the book, which is in no part down to your fantastic work. So, before we get onto that, I was trying to work out exactly when and where we met, Charlie, but effectively the beautiful relationship started between the two of us back in the day, where you came into the Sheridan's offices for us to meet in the first place. I think that was about right.
Yeah, I think it was. It was when I was working at Goat, and Harry Hugo made the introduction, because obviously you guys do a lot of work with them, and I can't remember exactly what I was wanting advice on something, and I just knew that you're the man to come to from what everyone had said. So I was like, Harry, you gotta introduce me. I gotta talk to Dan. And then I think we ended up speaking for like an hour and 20 or an hour and 30 minutes on the evening of one weekday.
But it's true. When you meet someone like-minded, someone that you're just like, it sounds like a bit of a bromance going on, but that's fine too. It's just like and it's the same when we met.
It's true though.
Well. Yeah, that's what it was. It was just like-minded, speaking the same language, really proactive, loads of cool ideas and things. And it was like, actually, this guy's going to be really interesting.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I think the Liverpool supporting common theme helped a little bit there, break the ice.
It took us a while it took me a while to warm to Ollie a bit more as a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, I was just going to say we didn't have that initial connection in terms of the same team supporting.
But the cool thing then effectively was that once we'd had that initial chat, and then I'd sort of mentioned, I want to try and do something a bit different with the book activation, and I want to try and just put it out there in a slightly different way that books usually are. And you were just like, amazing, this would be a really cool sort of split. It was basically a side hustle project for you, really, whilst you're doing your day job as well. Yeah. Firstly, tell me how we got the dream team together, basically, with the three of us, and what we actually did, because I didn't really do much in that sense. Basically, it was all your good ideas.
Well, it rang a bell there, because I remember it now. Our first chat was when, I think it was about 6 months after I joined Goat. Must have been the beginning of 2018, I think, at the end of 2017. And, in the talent division there, I had all these, ideas that I wanted to run by you. And then it was a few months later that we came to the discussion about Done Deal. So our first chat was before Ollie had joined. And then, building out this division, I was looking at, the next hire of who it was going to be. And so going through interviews, and Ollie's one of the interviewers. It's me and one of the HR guys in the interview. We leave the interview, get done. There'd been 3 or 4 interviews at the time, and I was like, I really like that guy. I think he's got something. Let's get him in. Follow up with him. And a few conversations later, I was feeling quite good, and I'm down in the south of France with a client at the time, and I was there for like a week, and I pop open the laptop in the office down there for a little while, and a message on LinkedIn, Ollie rejected the job. I was like, oh man, no, come on, he was the good one.
Yeah, mate, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a negotiation tactic that he learned before he even got in the building. And the one thing that you're great about, Dan, is networking and keeping up with your relationships and such. And a couple of weeks later, I was still down in the south of France. I get a message again from Ollie saying, I'm sure you hired someone, but if there's still a position going, I would love for you to consider, potentially me joining. And I basically replied, yeah, you start on Monday. And that was basically it. I was quite frustrated that everyone else came after didn't really sort of match that bar. And then after I messaged you start on Monday, I messaged our HR team and said, hey guys, I have a new starter coming in on Monday. Can you prepare him? I won't be there. I'll still be in the south of France. And one of the big things I told Ollie in the interview is like, look, we're not working in football yet, but I want to be working in football soon. We're going to be working in football soon. First project we did on a big scale in football was the book from you. The first project of the tag team on Done Deal with Daniel Geey.
So, and Ollie, I'd be interested in your thoughts as well. Is like, I remember then at some particular point coming into the offices and then meeting you for the first time actually. And then sitting in one of the glass rooms more or less and being like, right, well, we've got this blank sheet of paper. We've got literally, this has been my mouse mat, you'd be pleased to know, for a while.
Good branding.
Good branding. Book that's going to be there, that's going to be coming out soon, and Bloomsbury had done a great job in putting it together along with myself actually writing it. But I was like, well, what do we actually do? What do we do from a non-traditional, generally digital perspective? I'm at a white blank sheet of paper to be like, well, how do we go about doing this? And that first meeting I came away with just like, that's awesome, because there were just so many ideas flying around, and it was just a matter of not only thinking of those things, but actually then actioning them as a result.
No, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it was in one of the glass buildings. I remember it. I remember the first time that we met, because I kind of got that instant connection as well, where you can just fire ideas off each other, and then you can then get more ideas and more ideas. I think that's the first thing that we did really was just break it down super simply and just see how we were going to set it out in terms of the strategy. So I think the first thing we thought of was just how are we going to have like a kind of a pre-launch. So like with this, like the main aspect of that was increasing awareness and increasing interest of the book, and be able to provide an insight for people that when their book is actually going to be available, that they're going to know what they're getting. They're going to know who Dan Geey is, what he does, and what the book's about. So I think that was the first kind of thing that we kind of set in place. And then obviously we had the launch and then the post-launch, which we'll come on to. But really from the side of the pre-launch, I'd say that we even broke it down to the fact of like really what social media platform was going to work best for us. And I think straight away, I think the obvious idea was going to be Twitter. One, because of you still have quite a strong following on Twitter. And two, is just a way that we could be able to generate conversations and engagements with people and be able to drive awareness through those kind of angles. Because I remember at the time you were doing a lot of interviews or had a lot of interviews upcoming, podcasts and even talks at, I think we went to a variety of different places. Yeah. So there was a really good opportunity there to be able to capture and gain quite a lot of longer form content that we would then be able to really break down and be able to distribute across your social media followings, and then create actual Done Deals social media followings, where again we could provide an insight to people about the book.
Yeah, and Charlie, from that first meeting, what were you? What ideas were you more or less, or concepts were you starting to like formulate between you guys as to like, well, what we're actually going to do? Is it we're going to put him on some websites, or we're going to try and break categories down? Because I remember it was even like, right, there's a chance transfer category. Obviously, then the book's coming out in January. We need to really push that angle in the window. How do we get him front and center to be able to say particular things? How, all of those type of things mixed in with like, how do we make it on a club by club base? There was just tons of different cool, like different siloed effects basically that we thought about.
Yeah, I think when you have one of those first initial meetings, you leave with, more work than you came in started with, obviously. But if you list your ideas, it's page after page after page, and you really have to take in some of the big box, little box thinking to say, okay, we've got, 200 of these amazing ideas. And then you analyze each one and you realize you can come out with maybe 12 at the end that are the actionable ones. So I think we looked at it from, a chapter by chapter basis as a possibility. We looked at it as a club by club basis and a topic, whether it's, commercial, whether it's, playing contracts, whether it's boot deals, or, the likes. And there was a staggered approach, right, with the publisher that was a few sneak peeks would come out first, and a few, parts of chapters would come out first. So it was mixing the main interesting topics combined with the passion of certain fan bases. And I think the ones that came out, which mixed quite well with the previews, was the transfer topics and then the club by club basis. We could have done a million things, but you're a full-time sports lawyer, one of the top firms. We full blast and trying to grow out the division as well. So it's, how can we streamline this? How can we make it efficient as possible? And from the work that you had done already in your career, you had a following, you had a name, people were jumping at the bit to come down and chat, which made it a lot easier than having to travel to city after city. And I think bringing all those together really helped us settle on the strategy of, okay, let's target Liverpool fans, let's target Chelsea fans, let's target transfer news, transfer deadlines, and trending topics, which, Ollie can touch on a little bit more because he was, front and center on that. When Chelsea got the transfer ban, we were able to really pounce on this trending topic, as well as the strategic approach, which, Ollie, you can explain a bit about how you handled that side.
Yeah, I think with the specific example of the Chelsea transfer ban, I think one of the most important things surrounding that was the quick turnover, because we only had, it came out in the morning. I think we turned it over within 1 or 2 hours. I think it even came down super simple as Dan, could you please just send me or Charlie said an audio message on WhatsApp, and then we could be creative in terms of the way that we make that audio better. So we put a design behind it, then we made some sound bars and put some text format to make it easier to see what you were saying, and just being super creative with stuff that we could have at our disposal almost. And then from there, obviously, you'd provide the value in the content in terms of what you're saying, what that means, so what that means with Chelsea at the moment, what they're going to do. I think you mentioned that they were going to appeal it, and then if they didn't appeal it, it would then go to this kind of part. And then from there, we could actually create a really nice piece of valuable content at an immediate kind of state of time, where people could get what they wanted straight away from Twitter. And then one of the most important things there is that we then created the kind of conversation in Twitter thread where we go, oh, actually, if you want to find out more information on these kind of topics, then you can then link to this book, and it will provide more of an insight into there. So indirectly, we were creating content about the book, but even with topics that weren't included in the book, which was a really cool angle in terms of what we were able to do.
And I really like the other thing that we managed to do as well, which I think worked very well at different times, was we had a sort of publisher strategy as well, which was, who are the publishers out there from a digital perspective that have got big followings, if it's influencers, but more importantly, if it's football websites that have big followings, that have big Twitter followings, that have good engagement levels, that you could use and recycle content that we already had to funnel everybody into this one thing. So, and that's what happened. I think what we did manage to do is that maybe it was a couple of weeks beforehand, or a week or so beforehand, we managed to get it on Sky Sports website in the middle of the transfer window, and that got viewed. Well, it got tweeted out to their 3.5 million followers 3 or 4 times over a couple of days, and that obviously had a link to the Amazon buy now page, and that was in effect the great thing that I think we actually got to grips with really easily and simply was, great, it's all good to get all of this attention, but you've got to convert the attention, and that's the cool thing that I really liked, that we had a proper practical message, which was everything filters and funnels into the Amazon page, where everybody very easily and quickly and efficiently can just literally click buy now, and if they've got Amazon Prime, it's delivered within a couple of days' time. And that was the great thing that then became almost a marketing tool in itself, which was, and I have to admit I got a little bit addicted to it, which was looking at my Amazon book rank. You're oh, great, it's gone up, or shit, it's gone down, or whatever. And it wasn't a ranking according to who was buying that most amount of books, but it was based on the algorithm of how popular your book was. So if I remember correctly, at launch party time, which was, I think, just towards the end of the window in January, where we had it at the at Goat's offices, which was fantastic, which you guys did an amazing job at doing as well. We had loads of people turn up, which was fantastic. It was, I think, ranked 24th or 26th out of every book that Amazon was publishing at that, not publishing, but selling at that particular time. And we had that really cool little video that we all put together, which was number one on football, number one in business negotiation for some reason, but who knows why that was the case. But that was the great thing about it, which was it all sort of led and funneled into that approach, which was quality.
Yeah, I think the main success will always be from the work you put in, over the years to it, being on the front lines in football, the experiences and the knowledge you have, and as well as the network you built up. That goes without saying, but you're not alone in refreshing the Amazon for the links. The part that you mentioned with the publishers, I think it was really cool to be able to see that you had so much fine detail in the content that even from one club standpoint, when we worked with the Red Men TV, we worked with Anfield Rap, that were great. They came down to London to do it. Is that even within one club, you had so much breadth of content, but not just content for content's sake, but very specific content that fits with the different background of the Anfield Rap and the different background of the Red Men TV. And when you come into, value for value conversations with this, the guys had to take time out of their day to come down from Liverpool to London, which was, great and appreciated. But that's when you sort of work in for the social media dynamic where, everyone wants to be first, everyone wants to be, quick on it, everyone wants a ball. So you leverage, if you guys put the work in and effort to come down, we can give you, the sneak peek of this book that's coming out, that's managed to be on Sky, that's been trending on, Twitter and the likes, while offering them the value also of the insight to stuff that their fans love, right? Fans of Anfield Rap and Red Men love the transfer news, love, behind the scenes of what happened. So at the end of the day, you're giving them value, we're getting value from them, and everyone wins. And that targeted approach, came off really quite well, I thought. But it all started from the expertise you laid out in the book.
And Ollie, just from then your perspective as well, is like, what did you? I'm not sure if you told me about it, to be fair, but it's almost like, what did you envisage? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot. What did you envisage sort of like success on what we were doing? Was it almost like we got so many cool ideas and we just tried to prioritize it, and then in the end we'll just see what comes out well and how we basically do it, because we've got so many things tools and things and ideas we can use in our disposal. How was it that when you were going through that process, as well as obviously doing your day job as well, and we were on WhatsApp all the time and chatting and literally on an hourly basis sometimes, what were you thinking as you were going along about how best you were trying to do things?
Well, there's really two things, right? Is that one of the cool things came kind of during, because I would come with you to quite a lot of the kind of the interviews and talks and stuff that you were doing, and to see the amount of people that also wanted the kind of the insight and gain the knowledge in terms of like in relation to sports law or football, or more specifically, or even like law in general, was like actually quite inspiring as well. Because for me, like dating back to the start of the kind of the talk where Charlie said about the kind of trying to get into the sport industry, and I saw Essen and Hugo speak about it with you in the previous ones, where they actually say it's one of the hardest industries to get into. And for me, I could really feel that, because I had that same situation. So having people like kind of come up to me and ask like, about connecting, talking about all the stuff that you're doing, and just like even you just having the questions and stuff to be able to provide to them, was one thing that was like really cool. Because then when you could actually see the kind of people engaging with you on social media and kind of stuff like that, you knew that you were providing like a real value to people, of not just people that were already in the sports industry that were trying to like network with you and create conversations, but also people that weren't in the sport industry and weren't in football or even law, that were just using the book as a way to kind of develop their understanding for what was to potentially come for them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And that was the cool thing. I think there was one talk that I did, which I enjoyed so much. I know that you were there too for, which was I did a talk with Ralph Honigstein, Gab Marcotti, and Tony Evans at one of my friend Rowan Silver's bookstores in East London, which was a bit edgy for me, to be fair, but it's must. And I just had the best time because loads of people were there. It got crammed into like this really cool, homely, quirky bookstore, libraria, where some of my favorite writers of all time were alongside me, chatting with me about football. And I was like, this is just cool. This is just great. And it just, made me take a step back a little bit, because what I don't know if John will spend too much time at more talking about Done Deal and more talking about your guys' stuff that you're doing at the moment, because effectively what you guys maybe realize but don't realize that you actually did from my front was I began to realize that like the content side of what I like to be doing needs to be a bit more front and center, and that started in loads of different respects. Like it started with doing my charity fashion stuff, which is where I'm constantly branded basically.
Got the 13 on.
Correct. And then onto like my YouTube channel, which Ollie mentioned, which we've been doing some stuff on, and the same with the podcast, which has been great, and I really love that. Which obviously this is going to be a part of, which is really proud to say. To TikTok, I'm on TikTok now. I'm not dancing as much or singing, if you please. And it more or less then just developed a sense of like all of these things are accessible if you get the right ideas, and you feel that you can give it a can-do attitude. And that was the great thing that you guys started off. So thank you for all of that. But I think also everyone would be interested to hear sort of, as much as you want to say, what you guys are doing now, and the great work that you're doing for someone that is a sort of global sports celebrity. So you talked the first thing about when you came into my office for the first time, Charlie, going, I want to get into the sports world. Well, here you are, pal. I'm sure everyone would be interested to hear your both experiences about what you're actually doing and how you're living the life, basically.
Well, no, thanks for you to say that we helped push you in the direction that you're really taking over now, as a compliment, Dan. Thanks. Before we get onto that though, because you mentioned a few things there, I'll ask you a question again on the subject. You mentioned the authors that you were with, and you mentioned now doing the content standpoint. But out of everything, what was your favorite part about the whole process? What did you enjoy the most, or the highlight? Because I remember what mine was, and I'll tell you after you go first.
Okay, so I'll even have a think up as well. The truth is that I really enjoyed the process. I really enjoyed literally like having the brainstorming sessions, doing the stuff, thinking about it. Like the transition for me of thinking about something to practically doing it and the outcome happening is very, very rewarding for me. I hate just talking about stuff and it not happening. So the exact inverse of that is absolutely the fun stuff. So my fun stuff was actually the process with you guys, which was like 11 o'clock on a Thursday evening, Ollie messaging going, I think we should do this for tomorrow. And I'm like, amazing. It's like, how amazing that it's like in your head at 11 o'clock at night that like you want to do it. So to me, it's that enthusiasm and the enthusiasm of the process of going, we should do that. That was, to me, that was actually the fun part. The end, the truth is like the party or or where the ranking is or that type of stuff. In a way, I'm almost like that takes care of itself a little bit. Like that's the outcome, which is great, and it definitely takes care of itself to a degree. But it's almost like, how do you enjoy the journey of getting to the outcomes? And it's that which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, you just start thinking what's next already when that big highlight's done. You're like, okay, what's the next project? What's the next project? Conscious, I'll answer the second, your question as well. But I would say the first part that was my highlight of the whole thing. And last night, Ollie messaged me again at 11 talking about something, and I was like, look, it's okay to wait till tomorrow morning to open your email. Don't kill yourself. But my favorite part was actually when your father was at the event. And he almost got some tears going at the end when I was just saying, like, what did you think? What an amazing book, and he was just talking about how proud he was of you, and I was like, oh man, that was that was quite cool. That hit me in the chest, that one, to see how proud he was of the work he put in. It was amazing.
Yeah, DG Senior. Yeah, no, he's great, and he literally was the guy that, you know, he lived and breathed it. He must have read that book or the manuscript about 7 or 8 times at least.
Really?
Going through every word, everything. Like even when I was back at uni and starting off in careers or doing blogs and all the rest of that type of stuff, every time, basically I call him the red pen man, because he was the guy that would print out my article within reason, tear it to shreds, be very nice about it, rebuild my confidence, and tell me how great it was apart from everything in the piece.
That's where you got the lawyer's detail from there, huh?
Exactly. So
it's funny. Well, a lot of the video content we did actually, you know, to finally answer your question, transitions into what we're doing now with Nico. His main thing is always adding value to people, right? Adding value. How can we make other people's lives better? How can we help people? Which comes into the podcast that he does. He's on a break from the podcast now called Beyond Victory, where he sort of sits with, you know, the world sort of high performing individuals, right? You know, very much in the vein of, you know, the Tim Ferriss sort of style. And not just to talk about the biggest highlights that they've had in their life, but how, you know, how they achieved it. You know, what was the lowest point in their life? How did they overcome it to reach, you know, what they're doing now? And how you can take that advice from someone like a Daniel Ricciardo, like a Toto Wolff, like a Xabi Alonso, to then say, how can, you know, you or I or Ollie or, you know, another regular guy take lessons of some of these crazy people and be able to use that in our lives. So when we were looking at this, you know, the COVID-19 situation, we've got 17 colleagues, including Nico, in 7 different countries right now, working remotely. We're like, how can we not just like deal with the situation, but overcome it and adapt to it and help people? So now we're doing a spin-off of this podcast in a way. It's called Leaders for Good on his YouTube channel, where we've really targeted people that are making quite a difference for people during this whole situation, whether it's, you know, people providing incredible donations, whether it's companies helping out first responders, and even, you know, next week we're recording with the CIO of Zoom, actually. So, you know, the platform that we're chatting on now, Nico will be speaking to him about, you know, did you guys see this coming? You know, how did you, you know, ramp up the service to handle, you know, the demand and the effect that they've been able to have on businesses, as well as a lot of stuff that we're not okay to, I don't think it's okay to say yet for embargo, but a lot of stuff that they've been helping out with that, you know, has been really, really impressive to help people along during this time, to give some inspiration. And on the sort of biggest scale, we're auctioning off one of his electric motorcycles by a company called Energica. We first had a relationship with them a couple of years ago. An Italian manufacturer, you know, incredible all-electric motorcycle, quite scary fast bike. But instead of doing an auction where, you know, one person can bid, what we're doing is doing a raffle, you know, hosted through social media. Half Italian charity, half German charity, and Ollie has, you know, took the project by the horns on this one, and tapping into all of their partners. The Moto E riders, Facebook are supporting as well as Michelin, who are providing the tires, and taking almost, you know, the same strategy as with the book, but applying that to using the partners working together for the reach and all of their social media channels to get this raffle out. So people can say, you know, not everyone can buy a motorcycle, right? You know, it's not easy. But people can say, well, if I put €5, you know, I'm in a chance to win this motorcycle that is an incredibly, you know, worthwhile thing. But even if they don't win it, then they're contributing, you know, the Italians are contributing to an Italian charity, and everyone else is contributing to German charities. So that's something really, really cool to be a part of, you know, to work with someone that thinks in that way. You know, the cool process is, how can we help them tell their story? And social media is, you know, it's amazing to be able to have platforms, you know, like the ones you mentioned you're using across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, to be able to do that. And as I think with all Formula One drivers, you know, driven is the word. You know, from a personal growth standpoint, how can we be a second faster, 100th of a second faster? You know, how can we always be better? How can we always be better? And it's something that translates to, I think, everything that he does, and everything we do, and you can see it, of how much I think that, from what I've seen Ollie grow the past year and a half, 2 years that we've been working together. I think it's a direct trickle down. So that's really cool to be a part of. Maybe Ollie has some things from his side that he wants to touch on as well.
So Ollie, question for you: how do you go from working with the Scouser to working with one of the most high-profile global celebrities on the planet? And I'm not talking about Charlie, by the way. So, like, you pinch yourself. I'm sure that, and just by your background, you're out in, the south of France, which is obviously a great lifestyle and a great place to live. Working with Nico on a daily basis on everything that he does. What a fantastic opportunity that must be.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about it like the other day, really, me and Charlie, and it's like crazy, really, to see how far it has come when you have those opportunities to do look back. I haven't really looked back too much, but really, in terms of the project, I think some of it has a lot to do with like being in the right place at the right time. I think that's one thing, but then also at the same time, when you have that opportunity, right, you got to be able to take the most of it and be able to maximize the things. So I'll
jump in here, Ollie, and I'll just point to Dan's 13 sweatshirt that he's wearing. The quote that's on the breast is perfect timing, huh?
Yeah. Subliminal, like, marketing, basically.
Exactly.
That wasn't even intended. But yeah, I think, like, as I was saying, just like make the most of the opportunities that you get given. So like there was a number of times where you've had to do the late nights that no one sees, or the boring, mundane tasks that just have to be done, and it's like making most of all these different types of opportunities, and then just really trying to like push forward in what we're doing. So yeah, it's quite hard to really explain it, because it's still really like been a quick process. But yeah, I put a lot of it down to just being able to have a bit of belief in myself as well. Like when I start, before I even took the job with working with Charlie, I was so specific on the area that I wanted to go in, because I prioritized while I was at university, this kind of stuff, in making sure that I did work experience in just a few different kinds of areas, and then from that I found an area that was of interest for me. And so once I finished university, I was lucky enough to have a kind of specific angle where I roughly wanted to go in. So for there, I wasn't like, and I mean, I must have sent off over like more than over 150 messages or emails, or with no reply, probably more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would always do is just make sure that any of the interviews that I did get the opportunity to go to, was that I would take them, because then I would be able to learn something from it. And so a lot of that kind of stuff I've still taken, and I use into the stuff that I'm doing today. And yeah, so I would probably paint kind of a lot of that stuff to do with like just being able to work hard, put my head down at times. Obviously, like Charlie has been like superb and like guiding me and helping me with like a lot of the different angles and what we're doing. Like even if it's now progressing from what was previously more focused on social media now towards more so partnerships.
Yeah.
And just like really learning the ropes of being of all angles. So not just focusing on like one specific aspect, but trying to make yourself in a way indispensable, where you can learn all the aspects of work where people feel like they can't get rid of you because like too much.
One of my favorite things is he had nothing to do with Formula One or motorsports before joining. Dad is his dad's a huge F1 fan. Ollie didn't want to hear any of it. And now, Ollie's the first one in our WhatsApp groups jumping in on, did you see this? What do you think about this? What's going on? Oh, I missed the races. It's awesome to see.
Amazing. That's very cool. I think one of the things also is like, ultimately it's hard to get into the industry, especially at a lower, less senior level, especially. But, ultimately what will end up setting everyone apart that wants to do this type of thing, and I see it day in, day out, you guys will see it as well, is you've just got to be on it, and you've got to deliver, and you've got to do it really well, and you've got to sacrifice. And, I'm not saying anything unusual that you guys haven't heard, full stop. It's just, that's what it is. And that's what came across pretty easily and straightforward in some of the stuff that we started off doing, whenever it was now, a couple of years ago. And the good news is, as I was mentioning, I'm probably going to start writing another book. So then I'm going to have to
Let's
ask
do it
Nico,
all again.
like, I'm going to have to ask Nico for a couple of days worth of your time. Otherwise,
Let's do it all again.
Correct. Dream team, get back on it sooner rather than later.
Hey, get involved in some of the driver silly season, and maybe we can get some Nico involvement in the forward or something. Get into the F1 market.
All over it, and that'll be really cool. Well, lastly, just before, because we were recording this in May before the football season's ended, Ollie, can I just ask you what you think about Liverpool being 25 points clear at the top of the table?
Well, the funny thing is this whole time there's been the talk of what's going to happen with the Premier League and stuff like that, and quite a few times I've been messaging Charlie and saying, "Mate, I hope you know that this league's going to get cancelled." And now I kind of think the joke's on me, right? Because it's looking down.
Well, however it works, everyone's going, you're going to have T-shirts with asterisks on. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. There's going to be a T-shirt with asterisks on. It's going to say Premier League winners almost certainly. And it's almost likely going to say with the largest ever lead from second place to first. So, it's like, the Chelsea boys have had their day for a while as well. It's not like you haven't had your successes over the years.
Yeah. I haven't really got a leg to stand on, if I'm being perfectly honest right now.
What position are Chelsea right now?
I think it's like 4th or 5th, right?
No, I think United are 5th. That's why I was like, okay, if it's cancelled as it is, I'm happy because they miss out on Champions League. So there would be a silver lining.
Awesome. Well, on that lovely note, I'll say, and honestly, just a massive thanks for literally getting involved in the first place. It was long overdue to have the chat. It was great to have you on, and hopefully we can do it again sometime, and we can hear more about all the other cool stuff that you do for Nico, and I'm going to be doing over the next couple of years as well. So thanks again, guys.
Of course. We're looking forward to it. Dan, while you're still here on the line, I saw in the podcast with Essen, you asked book recommendations.
Yeah, go on.
Can I ask for you to give the best recommendation of what you're reading now?
It's this one. And it's not to do
You've got
with
20 seconds, I think.
It's not to do with who I'm speaking.
What a fitting topic! What a fitting topic with me and Ollie on here.
Yeah, nothing to do with that. But it's brilliant. It's all about different personality types and how to deal with different people in certain ways. So yeah, Surrounded by Idiots is brilliant. You'll love it.
I've got it down on my next order. I've got it down.
See everyone soon, and thanks for coming on, guys.
Boys, thanks, Dan. Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you, Dan.